All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mindgasms. I am doing this. It's technically a mixed mental arts movie chat because Dusty was having technical difficulties. So we're going to do the mixed mental arts movie chat on Starship Troopers, which is, of course, if you look at it as a satire, which people disagree about that, I would say it's a subtle satire, which makes it a much better film. And of course, Starship Troopers is very loosely based on the novel of the same name by Robert Heinlein, who's that famous science fiction author who wrote Stranger in a Strange Land. And the director apparently didn't even read the novel. And it was supposed to be, and he said apparently that it was a satire. It was meant to be a satire of fascism, and he said something like the only thing that fascism is good for is killing bugs or killing aliens in this case. But anyway, I should let you start this off a little bit since this is technically a mixed mental arts chat there, Dusty.
Well, I guess we can kind of take a joint venture into this, but yeah, I was just thinking about it and just thinking about his other movies like RoboCop. And I don't think it's just a full satire of the book.
Yeah.
I think he just really didn't really care too much about the source material. And he made a movie in the way he makes movies. Like, if you take a look at the commercials from Starship Troopers and then the commercials from RoboCop, they really are pretty much in the same vein of satirical comedy. So I don't think he did anything more special to satirize the original material than what he does normally.
Okay.
I think
You have a
that's just
better
how he
idea.
makes movies.
Okay. You have a better idea of that than me because I don't think I've seen any of his other movies. Paul Verhoeven.
You haven't seen RoboCop?
No, I haven't.
Are you kidding me? Oh man.
Yeah, I should
You gotta watch. Yeah, you gotta watch RoboCop. You
Yeah.
gotta watch the first couple of them. But yeah, like I said, he basically made the movie like he makes movies, and I don't think he paid any special satirical attention to the material than he did in his other movies. It just seems like a movie that he made. Like, if you watch RoboCop, you'd be like, oh, this is like almost the exact same format. Like, he has the satirical commercials, and then he has like over the top action.
Oh, okay.
So I don't think it's that much different from the other movies he's made.
Oh, okay. And it's funny. It's funny too that I don't know if you watched that video that I sent you from Wisecrack. They did a movie chat about this movie. They were talking about how basically the whole cast from the show Melrose Place is in this space, and it's like Melrose Place goes to space. I never watched that show, but apparently like Casper Van Diem and Denise Richards were in there, and I don't know who else. Maybe Neil Patrick Harris was. I'm not sure. Do you know?
Well, can you restate the question?
Do you know anything about Melrose Place?
Not a whole lot. I know it was kind of supposed to be a successor to like Beverly Hills 90210 or something like that.
Oh, it was?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. American primetime television soap opera that aired on Fox from July 8th, 1992 to May 24th, 1999. I'm going to look that up on IMDb to see what actors were in it. But that was one thing that they were talking about on... Oh, Heather Locklear was in that. That's interesting. Why does Courtney Thorne Smith sound familiar? I don't know. But that's one thing they were talking about in that Wisecrack video about that. They were talking about the acting. They were talking about like whether the actors were deliberately trying to be cheesy and over the top or not. I
I
think
don't think so.
that's interesting. That's debatable. Like you just said, it could, you could easily argue that they were playing it seriously. Like they weren't playing it as a satire. They were just trying to play the roles with a lot of emotion. But yeah, you think they were playing it seriously?
Well, he didn't write the movie. Like he read some of the script, like some of the like a couple of the chapters of the original source material, and he handed it off to somebody else because he couldn't be bothered to finish it, to write it.
Okay.
I just like if you've seen RoboCop and then watch this, the movies are similar. It's like this is his style of movie making. It's not like he did anything different than he's done before. So this is why I'm like, when I hear people say, "Oh, he didn't do it justice," blah 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 blah, and it's like, well, if you've seen RoboCop and you watch this movie, it's like they're very much have the same tone. The tone of these two movies is almost identical. Like there's like funny parts in RoboCop. Um, I wouldn't say that like when I watched it, I don't really think there were that many like intentionally comedic parts. In RoboCop, there definitely are. All the intentional comedy in Starship Troopers mainly resides within like the propaganda commercials.
Yeah, that's actually what I was just thinking about. My favorite parts of the movie are the propaganda. Like, do your part, and there's that part. I think it's at the beginning where the soldiers are like handing out grenades to little kids and encouraging them to like step on cockroaches and shit like that. And then at the
Yeah.
end, they're like, come and fight for the mobile infantry and defeat the bugs. Don't you want to? And I love that when they show those TV ads at the end of them, and they always say, "Would you like to know more?" And I
Yeah,
think,
it's yeah, it's pretty like the RoboCop, all the RoboCops that he directed have those same style of commercials in it. So that's why I'm like, okay, this is a movie from Paul Verhoeven. That's how he makes his movies.
that's pretty cool. Yeah, when I think we were talking about this before. When I first watched it, um, I think I was a teenager, and I had never even heard of the book. I didn't even know that there was a book. And obviously we can talk about how fucking phenomenally different the book is from the movie. But when I first saw it, since I was a teenager, I just thought, oh, this is a really cool movie. There's lots of fighting and action and violence and gore, and there are also boobs. That's pretty good.
Mhm.
But then, like, watching it again, uh, the last couple of times I've watched it more recently, I actually, well, I guess when I watched it, when I watched it for the first time when I was an adult, after not having seen it for years and knowing that it's based on a movie, but not knowing that it was a satire, I watched it and I was like, man, this movie doesn't fucking hold up at all. It's awful. But then when I found out that it was a satire, and the few times I've watched it since then, I thought I like it a lot more. I'm like, wow, this movie's awesome because because it's so satirical.
Yeah, so like if you don't know that going in, yeah, that can definitely alter your view of what you just watched.
Mhm.
I think because when I first watched Starship Troopers, like the commercials were amazing. I was like, man, this is going to be a good movie. And when I watched it in the theaters, I thought it was a good movie. I still think it's a good movie. Um, I think I'm able to divorce the ties to the book. Um, I, I
Yeah,
I
they're like
get some
separate
people's
things, really. Yeah.
I get some people's critiques about it. Totally get it. I watched the movie before the book, Um, and it's not like Paul Verhoeven was trying really hard with portraying, like, there's so much stuff that's left out of the book that's not in the movie. Like, there's a whole mechanic. Like, the guys are supposed to have armored suits. And they're supposed to be walking tanks, basically. In the movie, they're just like cannon fodder
That's
for.
that's one thing they were talking about in the Legendarium episode that you recommended to me, that they don't have those like awesome suits, and they're not like walking tanks like they are in the book.
Yeah, and
They also
the I
go
was
ahead.
gonna say too, like the bugs, like they're displayed as these like huge, like mindless menaces. In the book, well, I'm saying in the movie, that's how they're depicted. In the book, they're kind of like more humanoid. They're not like these big ass scary monsters. I
And they can
think they,
talk, and they carry guns too.
yeah, they don't use melee combat. They're carrying guns and shooting them too. So but I like the way that Paul Verhoeven made the movie. I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, it's different, but I understand. Like, it was, I like it. I can't, like, I like both of the things. Like, I get it. But from the standpoint of the book, it's like, there's a lot of philosophy in the book. And
Yeah,
most of that is kind of thrown out in the movie.
yeah,
It's just a dumb action movie.
yeah. Basically, it's like these teenagers go to space and fight aliens, and there's not really. This is one of the things that they were talking about in that Wisecrack episode. They were talking about how this is the only war movie they've seen that is not an anti-war movie. Like, you don't come out of it seeing the real costs of war and them changing their minds. You do kind of see the real cost of war at a few points, like when Johnny Rico almost dies, for example, and the first time they fight the bugs, and it's just fucking awful, and they're just massacring them, but they don't really
Mm-hmm.
seem to learn any lessons from that. And it's interesting too what you mentioned about the philosophy there. They talk about that in that Legendarium episode, and I remember thinking when I was listening to that, yeah, I guess in the book there is some of that, but it's interesting to me because I've studied philosophy so much. The philosophy in the book is pretty like fucking kindergarten level to me. It's like,
Yeah, it's not good. Like,
yeah,
they loved it in the Legendarium. I
yeah,
wasn't in love with the philosophy. I got some of it. Like, I know some of it was in the movie. Like, one of the points was like, does violence solve anything? And like, yeah, he's kind of true. Like, it does solve things. It puts an immediate, like, what I mean by solve is that it ends the majority of the conflict. But when you use violence, what do you also sow? Like,
right. Yeah, it's like that part near the beginning of the movie where they're in class, and
hmm
that professor, one of the students, says that violence doesn't solve anything, and he
hmm
says something like, tell that to the survivors of Hiroshima, and or the people who attacked Hiroshima, because that stopped the Japanese invasion, obviously. Oh yeah, I just looked up the cast of Melrose Place, and it looks like at least um, that chick who plays Dizzy was in it.
oh, okay, okay,
Yeah,
all right. Yeah, I didn't really watch that show. That was kind of
I've never seen it. It
that was a
doesn't really
big
look like I
show.
would want to see it anyway.
Yeah, that was a show. Yeah, that's not something I would watch either. It's one of those drama weird shows that made no sense to me. Like,
Yeah,
I kind of understood Beverly Hills 90210 because at least they were in school, but like the other stuff I just didn't care for.
yeah.
But yeah, I remember in the book, it's like the class is called like history and moral philosophy or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's like, I understand that there's a lot of
Someone just commented and said this. You would not want to see it.
what, the movie?
Melrose Place.
Oh, Melrose Place. Oh,
I think that's what you're talking about.
I've watched it before I could really grasp the significance of it, or if it had any significance whatsoever.
Oh, okay.
Like I couldn't tell you a single plot line from the show. I think the only thing I know is that a couple characters from 90210 made cameos in it. I know Heather Locklear was in this show, and she was like a big deal at the time.
Yeah.
But that's about all I could tell. I think they lived in some type of apartment building, which is basically Melrose Place is the street of that apartment building.
Okay.
But all it was about like people's romantic relationships and crap like that I didn't really care about.
Was it about like spoiled rich kids?
Yes.
I don't think so, because they lived in an apartment building.
Okay.
But
one other aspect that it's interesting, it would be interesting to talk about in terms of the movie is like we sort of alluded to it earlier, like the possible benefits of fascism. It's
benefits
like how,
of fascism.
yeah, it's like how Paul Verhoeven said I think he was trying to communicate apparently that the whole point, or at least the underlying point of the movie, is that the only thing that fascism is good for is killing bugs. And it seems like they've like, obviously it's satirical, but there's sort of this fascist utopia in a way in the movie, like everyone, or at least the people that we see in the movie, seem to be benefiting, and they're like obviously they're like group showers and stuff, which is like probably was my favorite scene when I first watched the movie.
Oh.
Teenager, if there were boobs, and
Yeah.
and it seems like obviously, because it's a fascist state, they seem to be really organized well in terms of like militarily organizing an assault. And then there's obviously this part isn't a benefit, but it's an interesting, and it kind of feeds more into the satire for me. All this like ideologizing really about, quote unquote, doing your part, and the like how it's interesting. It's almost the opposite of some stories in some ways, because Johnny Rico is rebelling against his parents who don't want him to join the military. They want him to take a year off from school and go to a vacation beach planet and have a fucking vacation instead. He's like, no, I want to do my part. I want to join the mobile infantry and kill some fucking bugs, man.
Well, the funny thing too is like, because I didn't realize this till much later, and I was like, what's with all these white people in Brazil?
Oh yeah, Buenos Aires, right? And they have like
Oh,
Buenos
is that
Aires
Argentina? Oh no, that's Argentina, right? Buenos Aires.
Yeah.
Oh, never
Like,
mind. There's a bunch of white people that live in Argentina.
White people named Johnny Rico and like Rodriguez, and like, yeah, that's interesting. Like, I think I've heard people talk about how, I don't know, that's some sort of idea of there being more mixed race people or something, but then why do they look white and have those names? It's kind of...
I just thought it was funny. It was a little confusing too.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't really... I think because the society itself... Because I don't exactly know how to describe it as fascism. Like, I guess if you're looking at like the Italian version of fascism, problem is we don't know how the state of the world was run economically, because we'd really kind of have to know. We'd also have to know at what extent, like it seems very militaristic and very nationalistic.
For sure.
And we're talking about nationalism, we're talking about the earth versus whoever else.
Yes. So it's
'Cause
like planetism.
yeah, so I don't really know. I think it's more of a extremely nationalist and militaristic state, but I guess the
Yeah.
closest we can find to that is fascism. But um, Italy wasn't super militaristic, and they
Hmm.
weren't considered fascist. So I don't even know. It's really
Oh,
hard.
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I don't know. Um, Another point in relation to that I remember them talking about that Wisecrack episode about this is that there's there's some speculation apparently about whether the bugs actually did send the asteroid to Earth, or whether whether the humans actually did that themselves to manufacture consent for a war, which we know has happened in reality. So apparently there's some speculation about whether that might have been done to add to like the fascism, the satirical satire of fascism element of it. I don't know. It's hard to say. Like it's hard to know what direction they were going with that aspect of the story.
Well, it's not like they actually defined the. Well, we gotta assume from what the movie presented to us that it was the bugs. They really don't give us any clue whatsoever that the humans manufactured the war,
Yeah, they said it.
because
Um,
it makes no sense for them to do so,
I think
considering.
the only thing that any character says against the war, I think it's that part where I think it's that part where Rico is healed after the first invasion, after he's been in that like healing underwater like Luke Skywalker type chamber for
Mhm,
healing, and
the Super Saiyan healing chamber.
yeah, yeah, and there some news reporter stops and asks him a question, and it's something about how I forget what exactly it was, but it was something about how some oh yeah, how there's like some activists are saying that it might have been this human rebel organization that sent the asteroid from another planet instead of the bugs. I think that was it. I might be fucking that
Hmm.
up, but I think it was something like that. And then Rico says something like "Fuck you guys! I'm from the MI and we all died. We gotta kill those bugs. Kill the only good bug is a dead bug."
Mm. Well, yeah.
And
Um,
I think something that the another thing that Paul Verhoeven supposedly said was something about how these bugs, these alien monsters, can be the substitute for this totally one sided binary like good and evil narrative, so they can be the ultimate evil, but then also with the satirical element, like even apparently some of the uniforms that the human militaries like the mobile infantry and the air force or whatever you call them wear are like sort of modeled after Nazi uniforms apparently in a way.
well, very specifically, the Carl's uniform
Oh yeah, especially
has
like
got.
when he sees them later, when he's become this like intelligence specialist and he's like a colonel, he really does look that way. Yeah,
Yeah, that uniform is a straight up Nazi uniform.
yeah,
Like the other ones hint at it, and then his is just like full blown Nazi. It's like, okay, I guess that's kind of what he's trying to imply here.
yeah,
Possibly, possibly.
yeah.
But
I I wasn't
I
a fan.
still like the movie though.
Yeah, yeah, it's awesome. I like it because it like especially like we said, if
It's
you
such a
view it as a
dumb movie.
satire, it's a great movie. It's a great movie if you watch it as a satire.
Yeah, it's such a dumb movie. Like they talk about like the Mormon outpost, which is hilarious, and then they go to a place
Yeah,
that looks like the Mormon outpost,
yeah,
and then um, Ratchet teaches him a lesson when one of the guys gets captured, he shoots him to put him out of his misery.
Yep.
And then Ratchek's, legs get bitten off, and he's like, "Oh, you know what to do, son."
Yep.
So.
Yep.
um.
Ultimate badass moment. Obligatory ultimate badass moments.
Yeah, and he's a teacher, and he comes back. But that, of course, that wasn't in the book. Neither was like the drill sergeant who busted himself down to private.
Yeah, wasn't Ratchek and the teacher like different people in the book or something?
Yeah, they're different characters.
Yeah.
Different characters. But yeah, but there's, I guess, my only, there were some super stupid, funny things, like the football game or whatever that game was that they were playing, where he's like somersaulting all over the place.
Yeah, that like drama love triangle too between Rico's girlfriend Carmen, played by Denise Richards, and that other guy in the football team who was going out to, I forget what it's called, but like the Space Air Force, the Space Force people.
Yeah, Space Command, Fleet. I think they just called it Fleet or something like that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
But it's interesting though, both of them ended up with losing, I guess, their loved ones in the end.
Yeah.
So Dizzy died, and her pilot boyfriend got his brain sucked out through a straw.
Yeah, Carmen's boyfriend. He got his brain sucked out by that brain bug who eats human brains, right?
Yeah, and then we get to see him. And the funny thing is like that scene where he gets the message from her and there's like a breakup, is, from what I've heard, it's quite common in the military for guys who are deployed for a long time to receive those types of messages.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess that wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, if you never see each other, like supposedly, maybe it's kind of similar to how, I mean, I haven't researched this at all. It's just based on word of mouth and people I've known who've done this, but apparently it seems like there's that cliche of how long distance relationships never last. I've only known of like maybe one or two examples out of the admittedly small sample size I have of those types of relationships that have worked out.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think about that?
Well, I personally have made it work out. Like, my current relationship was long distance for like 6 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I understand it, I guess.
You think you could make it work if you were killing bugs?
No, probably not.
No?
Because you have to remember that the people who are out there, like, they're in the mindset that their lives are short. So
Right.
I think it would be a little bit more difficult for them to sustain that connection to home.
Right.
Maybe some need to sustain it. Others would probably have difficulty because they have really immediate concerns about their lives.
Right.
So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that two things I was just thinking about Dizzy. That was one of the things that they mentioned in terms of like the supposed utopia that they've created in their society. Like there are women badass warriors, for example. And then also, this is sort of random, but just in relation to her. Like I remember when watching it this time, how come no other guy ever goes for Dizzy? Like there's this love triangle with Carmen and Rico and the Space Force guy who ends up being Carmen's boyfriend, but no other guy ever goes for Dizzy. I don't get that. Why doesn't that happen?
Well, I get the implication, because there's the implication in the movie that she followed Rico to that unit.
Yeah.
Although she says it's because supposedly it's like the best unit. I'm not certain that's the case.
I think she followed him, yeah.
Yeah, because we kind of we get the because I don't know, like the Roughnecks weren't a part of that unit, where there was like a different type of unit.
Oh yeah, they've got
Because
that.
their unit got destroyed, and then they got put in that other unit.
I love that
And
awesome
then
war cry, or not war cry, but that like morale cry that Ratchek says, "Come on, you
nobody
live
lives forever.
forever."
Yeah, I think that was in the book too. Yeah, that phrase, that war cry was also in the book,
Oh, okay.
from what I remember. I never understood that. You want to live forever? Like, I even played a couple video games that use that same war cry.
I think
Uh,
I kind of think that it might be related to there's a similar thing
I
in ancient
think it
Rome.
originated, but I think that war cry, I remember, I don't know, I think it was a history, hardcore history. I remember him mentioning that in like his World War One podcast.
Yeah, there was something I think there was something that he mentioned in his Kings of Kings series too, when he was talking about the Persian armies. And I think I seem to remember um like seeing that, like reading this in historical novels I've read about the Roman Empire, and I might have heard it somewhere else too. Like there was some sort of similar saying, like you're not going to live forever. And I think there was something even about like Roman generals or some ancient generals or someone like that, where they would literally have a slave whisper in their ear when they were about to go into battle, something like "you're never going to live forever." It was some Latin phrase that meant something similar to that. I don't think that's exactly it, but they would do that. And then I was thinking about something related to that too. Like, you know how in 300, when King Leonidas finds out that gimp guy who he refused that fight for him betrayed him, he says, "May you live forever," because the ultimate insult is that you will not die a glorious death in battle. So I think that's part of it
Maybe
too.
that's
Like, you
part.
don't want to live
Yeah,
forever because then you'll never experience a glorious death.
that sounds like, yeah, that does sound like it would be kind of the impetus of that phrase.
Yeah.
But there was this one thing that really bothered me in the movie. It really bothered me that their fleet was getting destroyed by these really slow-moving projectiles.
Yeah. Well, they were fucking massive projectiles, and it was a slow move, and they seemed to be like slow moving ships. But yeah,
Yeah,
they
but
could
you could
still like,
track them though. Like, you could see these trajectories and know where they're gonna hit. It's almost like they were ignoring them completely. Like
yeah,
when Carmen's ship got hit, it was like, oh, it's as if they didn't know it was coming. So it's like they weren't even tracking these things.
yeah,
I
yeah. That's
just thought it was a little ridiculous. I was like, man, these things are moving so slow. How are they getting hit by them?
yeah,
This
that's
doesn't make
true.
sense to me.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's one of many of the ridiculous parts in the movies.
Well, that bothered me. And then she was like in half a ship, and they had to get the escape pod. They landed directly into a nest where they were captured. But yeah, and then they had the Neil Patrick Harris's character um, come down, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I guess the mission." And that's weird, I think on one of the missions they weren't even really told why they were there, and then they found out why they were there from Neil Patrick Harris. It's like, wow, they're not cluing anybody in on
Yeah,
what
yeah.
they're doing.
It's like, hey guys, we basically sent you there to die. Sorry.
Yeah, basically. Because it kind of seems like the dynamic is really Carl is basically their boss, becomes their boss in a way.
Hmm. Oh, I love one of my favorite cheesy satire aspects of the movie is when before they go off to the military,
The,
Carmen makes them do that like friendship pact. let's promise that no matter what, we still stay friends. And then once they capture the brain bug at the end, they they all like say, hey, look, we still stayed friends throughout all of it. Like it's still this innocent soap opera vibe.
Yeah, because in the book, it was very like a war as hell type of vibe. They didn't try to fluff it up. Um, really, it didn't really seem like they were fluffing it up like that.
Yeah.
Because I think the main character in the book, like one of his friends dies. Um, but and then it's yeah, the they're so totally different, but also similar in a way. It's just kind of like a different lens that's being used to examine the material. But
Yeah, the book is much more serious, obviously.
yeah, the tone is quite serious.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I thought it was funny too. Like there are definitely some cheesy moments where like Rico's talking to his parents and it's like getting dark. It's like, oh, is it about to rain or something? And the screen cuts out. Anyone who's watched the movie before is like, that's the meteor. Because we don't actually get to see what happened till like a few scenes later. Where I think Rico's about to resign and then um, the whole camp like goes into disarray and he finds out that Buenos Aires was nuked or whatever.
Right. And he's like, I want to be reinstated. And then that's when they agree to give him the 10 lashes in public instead so he can still stay in the military, right?
Yeah. What did you think about that weird animated love note in the beginning that they were passing?
What do you mean?
Like in the beginning of the movie, Rico and Carmen were passing love notes to each other on this weird,
Oh, yeah. I thought that was funny. I thought that was sort of a funny imagining of what like screen technology might look like in the future. And even now it's already more advanced than that.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, it's so cheesy.
Yeah. Yeah, that was funny.
One of the also things I noticed too is like a lot of the teachers in their high school had some sort of deformity.
Oh, really?
Like, well, you
Obviously
had,
there's that chick.
yeah, and then the science teacher had like, looked like her face, like someone poured acid on her face and she was blind.
Oh, I thought, oh yeah, I was wondering why she was wearing sunglasses. That was a little weird.
Oh, she was blind. I think she even had like a stick.
Oh, okay.
Because that's the same class where they're dissecting the bug, and then Carmen just like vomits all over and she can't handle the dissection.
Right.
I'm just going through my little notebook because I took some notes on front of some of the stuff that I thought was funny.
Oh, okay.
So just a bunch of stupid love triangle crap.
Yeah. Yeah, when Rico and Carmen's boyfriend are fighting, they get they get so unbelievably enraged so quickly.
Oh, here's one ridiculous thing. I think it was after their first battle with Ratchek's Roughnecks. Like he rewards them with footballs, beer, and a neon violin.
Yeah, yeah, that was funny.
Like, okay, we got this neon green, like see-through violin. That's like the greatest reward ever.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that guy who's that tall blonde guy who's friends with Rico and Dizzy too. It's so funny like when in that scene when he gets the violin and he starts playing it, he's just there to basically serenade Dizzy and Rico, and it reminds me of that part earlier on too when Rico gets promoted to squad leader, I think, and or maybe it's after that. Whenever he offers that guy his friend a promotion too, and he's like, no, I'm not the power type. I'm just a grunt. It's almost like,
Well,
no, my character has to stay in his obligatory role. Okay, sorry.
Well, we got to see why, like when they get it, because he was made the squad leader, and in their first battle, he froze up,
Yeah,
and then
yeah,
Rico
exactly.
just kind of took over.
Yeah,
So he understood at that point that he knew he wasn't really leadership material.
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Um, and they also, because the part where Rico gets quote unquote killed, it's like, how the hell did he get saved? Nobody was around him.
I thought, don't they say at one point that Ratchik saved him?
Is that what happened?
I think so.
Oh, oh okay. And I think also during the government, like some of the government scenes, like the leader of the government. Do you remember what they're called? Like field marshals or something
One of
like
them was
that.
the Sky Marshal. I remember that
Sky
the
Marshal.
Sky Marshal was in when that Sky Marshal was in charge of the evasion, and then I think the Clendathu invasion that Rico went to first failed so miserably that he had to immediately resign his post and get replaced by someone else.
Yeah, he got replaced by someone named Tahat Maru.
Yeah.
It's like Tahat Maru. That's a weird name.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and their first invasion, I think there was like 308,000 dead, which
Yeah,
is
something like
fucking
that.
insane.
Yeah.
Um, Also, when Rico was getting healed up, it looked like he had a vagina on his leg.
A little bit.
Yeah, and that's what it looked like to me. Um, but yeah, I'm just looking through these notes here. Oh yeah, it was funny too. There's this one part where Dizzy Dizzy and Rico are like getting it on, and then Ratchet interrupts them
Yeah.
and then gives them extra time to fuck,
Yeah,
basically.
he's like muster up in 10 minutes. He's like, make it 20.
Because he was kind of instigating that relationship, at least with Rico. He's like, "Oh, you don't know what you're missing there," or something like that.
Yeah, it's like how Rico asked him for advice at the beginning whether he should join the mobile infantry or not because his parents didn't want him to, and Ratchik basically said, "I'm not going to give you advice." And then later on, he said, "You wanted advice. Basically, go after Dizzy. Don't let good things pass you by."
Yeah, and then another funny scene is when they find that general hiding in like a closet,
Yeah,
like the cowardly general who ends up getting killed.
yeah.
I called that whole scene, I called it the Bug Alamo.
Oh, that's a good name for it.
I think that's probably like my favorite like combat scene in the movie when they're trying to defend that little post and they're waiting for um to get airlifted out of there. And when they do get airlifted out of there, there's like barely any survivors.
Yeah.
It's like only a couple of them survived.
Yeah, and then that's when Dizzy gets killed too.
Yeah, she gets like a claw through the chest or something,
Yeah.
and she just like bleeds out. And then, oh yeah, I forgot Carmen and her new boyfriend thought Rico was dead
Right, right.
because
Yeah, cuz he got supposedly killed in that first Clendathu attack, but then they didn't know that he got healed, or she didn't know that he got healed.
yeah, so it's a little bit awkward. And you can tell he's like a totally different person now.
Yeah.
When he talks to her, he's like very professional and he's more about like his squad than anything else. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't even stop to like really say hello. He's just
Yeah.
like, I'm being a professional and doing my business here. And I'm caring about my squad.
Yeah, and he's like uh what did you call? Oh yeah, fleet does the flying, mobile infantry does the dying.
hmm Um, one of the scenes though after that, when they get, because I know they planned another attack, and the fleet gets shredded. Um, her ship gets blown. Carmen's ship basically gets blown in half. So we see like all this shit go down inside the ship. What I thought was funny is that her captain got crushed by a door.
Oh yeah, that's true.
I was like, how does that happen?
Yeah.
It's like, are there no safety procedures here? You just get crushed by a door, and that's like the most. That's like the worst way to get taken out.
Yeah, that's true. It's like, oh, the
Um,
ship's fucked, so the doors don't work. Guess you're gonna die.
so yeah, when they crash land, I guess Carl communicates with Rico psychically to tell him that Carmen is alive.
He does?
Yeah, because at the end of the movie, Rico tells Carl, he's like, "Oh, that was you that told me that Carmen was still alive," or something like that.
Oh, okay. I forgot that part.
Because we remember when she crash lands and like the radio gets cut off, he basically assumes she's dead.
Right, right,
And then once they're going through the tunnels, he changes his mind about that and he sends the rest of his squad onto the mission and he takes a couple people with him.
right.
And he takes the crazy guy. I
Yeah,
forgot his name.
that dude who is it
He plays the
Vasquez or something?
priest in The Walking Dead.
Oh yeah, he did. I forgot about that. Yeah, he's the one who like went crazy on killing bugs and got covered in their blood, right?
Yeah, yeah, that guy. So he basically has a last stand with a nuke. I don't understand that part because one, it wasn't a dead man switch. It just kind of just randomly went off.
That's
What
true.
I don't get about the nukes either is like, how can you be using these things like such in close proximity? It's like, why even use a nuke? Is that even necessary?
That's a good point. I think that's
Yeah,
too much.
they're just shooting nukes everywhere.
Well, yeah, they're being reckless.
Um,
Yeah, I don't
but
know.
yeah,
I think.
Watkins is his name.
Oh, okay.
But he actually got blown up by the nukes before any of the bugs actually killed him.
That's true.
So he got to die honorably.
I like that part at the end too, where there's that commercial showing that they had captured the brain bug, and they're saying we're doing lots of thorough research on it, and it just shows
Oh,
and it shows that censored bubble right before they put that really sharp like fucking drill tool right into its eye. I'm like,
no,
yeah,
they
good
throw it,
research there. That's kind of
they
just
shove it,
torture.
they shove it into the bug's vagina mouth.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
that looks more like
I
a
think that's why it
vagina
was
than Rico's
censored.
leg.
I think if the mouth didn't look like a vagina, they wouldn't have censored it. I think it was playing off of the fact that it looked like a vagina, and they're just like sticking this thing in there.
Oh, that's interesting. I thought they were doing that because there was like a bunch of
Dude,
alien blood about to be out.
look at the brain bug's mouth. It looks like a vagina,
I think it does more than Rico's healing
or
leg.
maybe like an anus or something.
Yeah,
Like definitely like an orifice that you stick something in.
yeah.
But um, I remember like in the last like part of the movie, they're like asking Carl to read the brain bug's mind. He's like, "It's afraid."
Yeah, yeah, it puts
They
his
all
hand
start
on it.
cheering. They all start cheering.
Yeah. Yeah, that part's funny.
But yeah, I just kind of went through my notes there. That was all the funny parts I wrote down. I didn't really write any of the commercials because they were all pretty funny.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
those are the funniest parts.
would you like to know more?
Yeah.
It's like, well, okay, where are we supposed to click at if we want to know more? I actually I wonder if there's a commentary version of this movie. That would be interesting to check out.
Yeah, it might be worth buying the DVD or the Blu-ray just for that.
Yeah, I wish they had digital versions of these. It's like, why do we gotta buy like a physical copy just so we can get the commentary track? It's like you guys would make a lot more money if you guys sold like these commentary tracks digitally as an add-on or something. That would be great. Because I actually, yeah, I did rent this movie. So I paid the money to rent it from Amazon Prime. No, 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 no. This was free on Prime, but you had to watch commercials.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
No, I paid for American Psycho. That's the one I paid for.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
But
that's a good point. That's like an untapped market with like digital commentaries because you can get the digital movies, but not the commentaries. That's a good
yeah,
point.
all I do is switch the audio track in it. That's all they're doing.
Yeah,
It's like I'd if I was gonna do a podcast and a show, and it's like, oh, yeah, there's a digital commentary here. That would be great. But
yeah.
instead, I gotta listen to some other podcast talking about this in order to get some type of commentary. But it'd always be great to get it from the people who actually worked on the movie.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to hear a Paul Verhoeven commentary and maybe one with the writer too.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, so I know we didn't do a super deep dive on this one, but that's all good. I don't think we really needed to. I'd say I like the movie. I
Me
would
too.
recommend it to people. I always say you don't have to read the book in order to enjoy it. I'd actually say
It's better if
it's
you read the
not.
book after almost.
Yeah, I think that's the case. I think if you watched, or I think if you read the book and then watched the movie, you would be disappointed by the movie because
Yeah,
of how different it is. If you watch the movie first and then read the book second, and that's how I did it, I feel like I enjoyed both of them for what they were.
yeah, me too.
Um, and that's probably not going to be the case for Game of Thrones if J.R.R. Martin finishes these damn things.
Yeah,
so
yeah. Well,
I didn't like the last couple seasons of the Game of Thrones.
that's
Some
what I've
of
heard
it's
everyone say.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I know you haven't gone through it yet. Are you like, should I do it? Should I not?
For me, it's just that there's so many fucking good shows or shows that I've heard are really good that I want to watch. I have such a long list that uh, I don't get to all of them. Plus, this
Mhm.
one, I don't have like a streaming service that I can watch this on, so I have to watch it on my computer instead of on the bigger screen. So I'm less likely to get to it than other shows. I've still only watched like probably, I think maybe the first 2 or 3 seasons. I'll probably just start again from the beginning when I want to watch the whole series.
Mm. Yeah, you're gonna rewatch
Yeah,
it. The first few seasons are extremely solid. It's when they start to diverge from the source material, or actually, it's beyond the source material. I think that's when most people are like, "What's going on?" Is when it got to beyond the source material. The last season is like super rushed, but there is some good stuff. Like there's all the stuff that is based on the book is great. They did a really good job on that.
okay.
I just wonder how the story is actually going to end on George R. Martin's end. I hopefully he does it way more justice.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he will. I don't think he's going to write a bad book, but
Well, when I had only seen the show and I hadn't read the books yet, I thought the show was fucking awesome. But then once I
mhm.
read the books, I thought I liked the books more than the show now. What I've seen of the show anyway.
Yeah, I watched the first season and I was like, man, that was a great show. And I was like, oh, these are books. And then I started reading the books. And then that's when I was like, okay, yeah, this is good stuff.
Yep.
But
I
speaking
think
of
the
books, man,
isn't Winds of Winter supposed to actually finally come out pretty soon, apparently, like next fall perhaps? I thought I
who
saw Daniel
who
Green
knows?
saying that maybe.
Well, I've heard people said that the coronavirus Well, even I think George said that the coronavirus actually has made him more productive.
Yeah, yeah. I think I heard that, yeah.
So maybe we will.
That would be pretty awesome because I thought I had heard that, which makes me want to reread the series again too. And I don't want to listen to any of them as audiobooks. Got to read the physical books or ebooks because, like I told you, I can only get the audiobook versions with Scott Brick, I think it is, who does these horrible, cheesy voices for the character. And
Well,
like
I don't
Tyrion
know.
is Scottish for some reason.
Oh, that's Roy Dotrice who does the
Oh, yeah,
Scottish
yeah, that
Tyrion.
guy. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, the guy I like who read it was Roy Avers, and he doesn't use a British accent. He's just like whatever, but he does. I like his voices better, um, and that's fine with me. I was like, oh, I think he just did better character voices. Like, so that's Roy Avers, and it's not really a standard version of the readings, and they're kind of difficult to find.
Oh, yeah,
I think I actually still have them somewhere.
you said something like that there's supposed to be an only for blind people version or something.
Well, the audiobooks that he were reading were sponsored by like some type of association for blind people,
Okay.
and I think this was before Roy Dotrice's readings.
Okay.
Because there are, even for book 4, I think there's 2 readers. One of them is bad, and the other is Roy Dotrice. It's definitely an upgrade from the other guy. I don't like Roy Dotrice that much, but it was an upgrade.
Okay.
But yeah, this time I will read it. I have not read any of the books before. I just listened to them.
Okay. Yeah, they're way better when you read them, in my opinion.
All right, so speaking of book reading, what have you been up to?
Well, I've been finishing reading the Conan stories because I'm still gonna talk to Daniele Bolelli about the classic Robert E. Howard Conan stories soon, and I'm reading the only actual novel that there is right now called The Hour of the Dragon. And I've also been, you saw on Goodreads that I've been reading some of the classic Deadpool comics. With the library account that I have through Edmonton, which is the nearest big city, I didn't even know that I could do that until recently. But unless you actually go in there and get a physical card, which you can't do because they've been closed due to coronavirus, you have a limited account. So for some reason with my account, you can only get audio books or magazines or comics. And lately I've been trying to listen to less audiobooks and read more physical books because even though I love audiobooks, I find that it like listening to them all day long while I do stuff kind of slows me down, and I end up getting through the books more quickly if I just read them myself because I can read them to myself more quickly than any narrator can read them to me, even if it's at 2 times speed. So, but so since I can't get ebooks out from that library, I can from my local library, but I like to like bounce back and forth between the libraries. So since I can't get ebooks out of that library, I'm going to start reading comics. So there are lots of comics in there, and I've never actually read that many comics before. So I started with the classic Deadpool ones because out of the Marvel movies that I've seen, he's definitely my favorite superhero, even though he's kind of more of an anti-hero. And there's some interesting changes in that between the movie and the movies and the comics, which I mentioned to you on Goodreads. Like they're obviously in the comics, Deadpool doesn't swear, but he's still like a sociopathic, wisecracking killer. And there, it's interesting. Like he's never actually, at least in what I've read so far, maybe that changes later. He's not actually working with any of the mutants. They're trying to kill him. And Vanessa, who is his girlfriend in the movie, is like this girl who's younger than him in the comic, and she was born as a mutant, or at least she was a mutant when he met her, which I think is interesting. And what else have I been reading lately? Oh yeah, I finished reading this book by Ken Follett called Code to Zero. I thought it would be interesting because I read another novel of his. He kind of writes some spy novels and some other kind of different ones too. Um, and I read another spy novel of his called The Man from St. Petersburg, which is about this anarchist terrorist. I think sometime around the era of World War One in France, and that was a really interesting one. And this one's about a guy who in 1950 who lives in 1958, and he wakes up with no memory of who he is, and then he gradually starts to think that he's a spy, but there might actually be something else going on, and there's some he might have been involved, or people he know might have been involved with some secret Russian plot to stop the first American rocket that was launched into space. I think it was maybe called the Explorer. I'm not sure though, but apparently to stop that. One interesting thing I noticed when reading that is all this fucking Russiagate shit ruined secret Russian plots for me in books. And oh yeah, and I also started. Well, no, not started. I've been sort of on and off, been reading for a while this book about the sociology of philosophies, because eventually Tim and I are going to do a series on that, and it's sort of like a sociological but also historical examination rather of different schools of philosophy across the world and across history. Like it goes into a lot of Chinese philosophy, for example, too. So I guess yeah, that's probably what I've been reading most recently.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I haven't read too much. Andrew Yang book was quite good that I read.
Oh, you read that, hey?
Yeah, it's alarming, but I'm also very impressed with the amount of research that Yang does. Like he's not your average like politician who's just full of platitudes and things. He just hammers down research and studies and stats in his books.
That's good.
A lot of it is about economic problems and what we could be facing due to automation, of course. Like the vast majority of the book is about that. But he does offer solutions, like changing the tax system and other things. Like the value added tax wouldn't allow people to create tax havens. It just eliminates that whole concept. Is you basically just tax all purchases. And so, I thought that made a bit more sense, because the more shit you buy, the more taxes you're going to pay, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So
that's cool. I started listening to his podcast on his YouTube channel recently. It seems like he's still trying to get some sort of UBI implemented too.
yeah, so I really loved his book. I gave it 5 stars.
Awesome.
I think if I had read that book before like everything happened, I would have been a hardcore Yang ganger.
Oh, cool.
Because the book, hopefully he remains an active political voice, in upcoming, elections and things, because he provides a lot of research about how fucked up the jobs are right now in the country,
Right.
and how like the stock market doesn't prove shit about like the average American.
Yeah, because the
Because
average American isn't involved with it.
the average American has no stock.
Yeah.
So it just doesn't help the average American. Like GDP doesn't really represent the average American either. So
Can I
it's a
see
really good
something
book.
about how the stock market is still doing well in spite of all the coronavirus shit?
It's because the Fed is pumping money into it.
Yeah, putting trillions of dollars into it.
Yeah, it's just propping it up.
This also reminds me too of I'm not sure if I told you, like, relatively recently I finally read Mark Blythe's book. I forget what it's
Oh,
fucking called,
what was it?
but he made
Um,
the
I know
one
which
that
one.
I heard about from through Mixed Mental Arts. Austerity.
Yes, there you
Yeah.
go.
And like this reminds me of what he says in that book too. Like, yeah, it seems like I think he has pointed out too, especially since the US market has such an influence on so much of the economy. I forget, I don't think I was this from him. I think I was hearing it from someone else. Like, apparently 80% of the world's economy on is based on US dollars or something like that. So it
Hmm.
has so much more effect on the economy. So it's well, that's one of the reasons that makes it easier for the Fed to pump trillions of dollars into the market without necessarily having as long-term of effects as people would say. And he sort of makes Mark Blythe sort of makes that argument in that book about basically like trickle up economics instead of trickle down economics, because if you have more lower income people who have more money and more jobs, then they can spend more money and put more money into the market.
Yeah, that's basically Andrew Yang's argument. Like, give the little person money, and they're gonna spend it. You know,
Yeah,
they're gonna, in general, lead happier lives. Jobs aren't like one of his other arguments is healthcare for all. You know that would have a big impact on small business owners because as a business, I think by law you are required to provide healthcare benefits for anybody that works over like full time. Like that's
right,
by law. So if you relieve that burden from business owners, they would have the ability to hire more people because they don't have to pump in all this money for healthcare coverage. Because yes, people who have healthcare through their employer, they are paying into it, but also the businesses as well. So when you pay healthcare insurance, you're not really paying the full cost. Your employer is also paying some of that cost as well.
right. And then obviously with coronavirus, one of the problems with your employer providing your health care is that if with so many people not having jobs, that means that they don't have health care at times when they really fucking need it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it depends on how angry people get, and I think the rise in populism is definitely because of these particular types of issues.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I
That
think so.
people have to work more for less.
Yep.
And what I mean is that, like the gig economy, you have no health care there. Um, people's wages aren't really rising to the occasion as far as like the growth of wages is just not there.
Yep.
People are getting frustrated.
Yeah, this is one theme that Crystal Ball and Sager and Jetty talk about on the Hill. There's a reminder of that because obviously you watched that Joe Rogan podcast with them the other day, right?
Yeah, I watched it. It was quite good. I just like their honesty, and it's cool that they have two people on the show. Yeah, they're both populists, but they're also kind of from different sides. Like Sagar's more conservative, Crystal Ball's more liberal, and we always get like some pretty good dialogues between them about
Yeah,
these things.
it's cool that they agree on so much. My favorite parts are actually when they do disagree because it happens so seldomly, and because they don't like scream at each other. They actually have reasonable debates about those issues.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. But what else did I read? Well, I didn't finish this book called Anathema. It's a science fiction book. It was like almost 30 hours, but the library took it for me before I could finish it. I would say, because I know Daniel Green has a lot of problems with modern science fiction, right?
Mm-hmm.
This book is a modern science fiction book that's written more like a classic, where it's more about the science fiction elements than like the human drama and all that.
Oh, cool. I love
So
classic science fiction like Isaac Asimov and Ray Bradbury and Robert Heinlein.
yeah, I think you'd like it. It's like, what if a society was invaded by aliens that wasn't an Earth society? So we get the main character, like the society has like a caste system. All of the intellectuals are basically monks. So they live like monks, very Spartan lifestyles, and all they do is study, and they're like super intelligent. And then you have like what they call the secular world, which is everybody else. So the monks are totally like cloistered away. Some monks come out every 10 years to show their discoveries to the world. Some come out every 100. And then there's some that come out every 1,000. It's actually unclear how long these people live for. That's what I couldn't figure out. But it was really interesting to see, like, what would a society to do upon threat of alien invasion. But it's a really cool book. It's called Anathema. And I think it's gotten some science fiction awards. But I would recommend it if you're looking for science fiction that's very much based in the vein of classic science fiction. There's a
Cool.
lot of heavy science in it.
Awesome. I will add it to my list of books that I want to read. How do you spell
Yeah,
that?
Anathema, so it's Anathem.
Okay.
I didn't finish it, and it gets like super good. Like it starts to become really actiony at the end, not super actiony, but there's always a level of like interesting science that's going on in the book. And there's a lot of talk about, like if you've read an Asimov book, there's always like a lot of explanations of science in his book. They do a lot as well in this book. So I thought it was really fascinating.
Cool.
And it's long. I think it's probably, if you were to read it, I believe it's like 900 something pages.
Oh, okay.
Really good. Another book I started recently, I'm halfway through, is the first book in the Night Angel trilogy by Brent Weeks. He's also the guy that wrote the Lightbringer series, which I
Oh, that's
talked
why I
to you about.
recognize his name. Yeah.
Yeah, it's he wrote this first. So I actually really like it because it's this. I love assassin fantasy, and that's what it is. Um, and all of the moral questions that come with, someone having to kill people for a job, and how do they disassociate themselves from their job and what they do. And then it's pretty good so far. I would recommend it. I think he has a really easy writing style to get into.
You said it's the
Uh,
Night Angel trilogy?
yeah, by Brent Weeks.
Okay. Yeah,
Um,
the Conan stories are basically assassin fantasy too, but they're also pulp fantasy, so there aren't really any moral philosophical questions. It's just I love them for what they are, and they're really well written too. The writing of Robert E. Howard is great, but it's mostly just like Conan going around and being a being a jacked
a
badass,
thief.
and killing a bunch of monsters and stealing jewels and that kind of, and getting into battles. And yeah, be like just rescuing women and then just being like, "You're hot," and then just starting kissing them, and then they eventually give in.
The
Classic
lamentation. Do you
misogynistic
get to
stuff.
hear the lamentations of the women?
Only a little bit.
um, do you hear buzzing?
No.
Okay, great. Um, hey, what else did I read? I've been getting through the Malazan book, which is I like it. It's one of those books that has like a lot of characters in it thrust at you in the beginning, so it takes getting used to figuring out who's who. Um, and it's like political slash military based like conflicts.
Right. I remember
And
hearing
it
that. Yeah.
yeah, so like right in the beginning of the book, there's like this huge battle, and a lot of people are killed and maimed. And one of the main characters is just like this chubby lady. Like they tell you that she's kind of fat, which I like when the heroes are like non-standard, Hollywood types. I always
Yeah,
find
that's
that
cool.
pretty interesting. Like that's what they do in Lightbringer. Like one of the main protagonists is like this chubby. I guess he was kind of a loser growing up. He has a hard time with girls because he's very um, what do you call it? People who not low self-esteem, but what do you call that when people have a
Self
low?
self-deprecating.
Well, I guess he has low self-esteem. Mainly
Okay.
this. Yeah, he does have self-esteem issues for
Okay.
sure. Um, but yeah, that's a pretty good one. I would recommend it. Also finished a Farseer #2, which is something Assassins. It's weird because this Farseer book, like all the titles are like Assassin's Apprentice and Assassin this and Assassin that, but it's not really an assassin fantasy. It's weird. It's more a political maneuvering fantasy because the assassin stuff is like not really highlighted much. And some of the missions he goes on, you just hear summaries of them. You don't actually get to see him do the missions. And the very few missions that he does go on don't turn out the way you think they would. Like he ends up like befriending the person instead of killing him and stuff like that. So it's by Robin Hobb, and it's oddly enough, it's also first person. So it took me a while to get into that, but it's fine now. It was a little bit of a jolt when I first started reading it, as I'm not really used to reading that many first person books.
Okay.
But I got into it. I think the second book is definitely better than the first. But I don't even know what it's called. I just call it Farseer 2, but it's called Assassin's Quest maybe, or I
Okay.
don't know, something with assassin in it. I'm doing injustice to it, but oh well.
Okay.
But that's about it. If I were to recommend any of the books I read, for sure, the Yang book is great. And from the fantasy, well, I would say the sci-fi book Anathem is really worth checking out.
Cool.
Yeah. But yeah, that's about it, man. That's right now I'm just still getting through Lord of Chaos, still getting through the Malazan book, getting through the Night Angel book, and I probably think I need to get my library to check in for the next book. Because I don't know if it's going to be a wait for that one or if I can get it immediately. And then I'm waiting on the next um, Dresden book. So
Oh, okay.
I think that one's lining up here. I'm like excited, but I'm making sure to read my library checkouts in order.
Cool. Yeah, I forgot to tell you. I just on Thursday ordered that book Hate Inc. by Matt Taibbi, so we can talk about it soon. And
Oh
I'm
yeah,
waiting
oh yeah.
until after I read that to start reading Lord of Chaos, and then we can do that chat too. I forgot to tell
Yeah.
you too. I commented on one of Daniel Green's videos. Oh yeah, the chat he was doing with Murphy Napier about her first read through of the Wheel of Time series.
Yeah, I watched her video of her talking about it. I didn't know that they chatted about it, but I watched a video she made after she read through it, and she's like, she loved it. She
Okay.
acknowledged its problems, but she also said it's one of the best character like arcs that she's ever read.
Hmm.
From like
I didn't see
what
that
they
one. I can
become.
check out her video.
Yeah, you should check out her video. She has her criticisms that a lot of people have. Um, Jordan's descriptions of everything, because he likes to describe everything, how everybody wears their clothing and all
Yeah,
that stuff. Some people don't like the character chatter, like the internal dialogue. I don't mind it at all because kind of gets you like you can't have insane Rand without having internal dialogue.
yeah. I wonder how they're gonna do that in the show.
Yeah, that's going to be difficult because that's the same thing with Deadpool. Like in the Deadpool comics, he has a lot of internal dialogue. And
Yeah,
in the way they do that in the movies, he does narrate that internal
yeah,
dialogue in the movie. So
yeah,
I don't know how they're going to do that for the show. Typically in shows, they don't include any internal dialogue.
yeah,
I'm expecting them to do it some other way. I just don't know how they're going to do it.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they do with that. One thing that she was talking about too. I don't know. She probably talked about this on her video too, but she was talking about this on her video with Daniel Green. She was talking about the slog, and
Uh-huh.
she was saying that she might have bailed during the slog if she hadn't had the series so highly recommended to her by so many people. And I commented on the video and said I probably would have bailed during the slog too if my friend you, who got me into the series, hadn't told me how awesome it is. And then some other guy was
Well, the
talking.
last books are freaking insane.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And
Yeah.
some other guy in the comments was talking to me, and he said he might connect with me to like talk about the Wheel of Time books.
Did you tell him that you've been on a number of discussions about it? Oh, you got
Oh, sorry,
muted
I had
there or something.
myself muted. I told him that we did discussions on the first 5 books and the prologue, or the prequel rather, so far.
Mm. Yeah, I didn't have that much, I guess, because I wasn't a heavy and well-read reader of fantasy when I first read. Like the only other fantasy series I'd read other than the Wheel of Time when I read the Wheel of Time was the Game of Thrones and basically Tolkien, and that was it. So I didn't, at the time when I read it, I didn't think it was horrible because one, I was listening to it, and two, I was listening to it at one time speed during my 1 hour commutes to and from work. And those audiobooks helped me during those 1 hour commutes to and from work. So
I
I
bet.
really didn't have. I know if I had read them when they came out, maybe I would have been disappointed. But when I had read them, started reading them, the series was complete. I think it had just completed the series, like had just finished after I started listening to them.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, "Oh, I know there's a book after this, so let's power through this." And I didn't think the slog was that bad. I might think it maybe I wasn't as critical the first time through, so maybe this next time when I get to the slog, I'll actually be able to confirm everyone's problems with that. But the first time I went through it, I was kind of oblivious to what everyone calls a slog. Because
Okay.
I wasn't that well read at that point.
I definitely did feel the slog. Like there, I don't remember which books exactly it was. I couldn't when I was talking to that guy in the comments. I couldn't remember what books exactly it was. I thought that I had heard maybe it was somewhere around 10 to 12, but he said that a lot of people say it's like 8 to 10. But I do remember there being 2 or 3 books that just really fucking dragged on for long sections for me.
Yeah, I thought like when people were talking about the slog, they were talking about like the circus bit, but that's not really what they were talking about.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just gotta go in there and find and kind of see what's going on because I consider, I guess the prequel slog-ish. There's not a whole
Yeah.
lot going on in the middle of the book. Like
Yeah.
the book itself is like a slog until like the last few chapters.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So if that's kind of what they're describing, I kind of get where they're coming from, but I got to re-examine that because when I was listening to the books, I didn't really, I wasn't like keeping tabs on which book I was actually listening to.
Oh,
So
okay.
I was just like listening to it, and I was like, it's different when you have like a physical book. You're like, oh, I'm picking up my Lord of Chaos here. When you're just listening to a string of audiobooks, you're not really like paying attention too much
Yeah.
of where you're at in the series and then which book that is actually coming from.
Yeah.
But I kind of understand what people mean now. But man, this Lord of Chaos book is pretty good. I'm liking it
I'm
again.
excited to get back into it.
Yeah, it's when it starts to get really meaty. You got because I know what's going to happen. It's like one of my favorite battles and one of my favorite phrases in the book is going to happen in this book. And that's the phrase, Ashavan, kill.
Ah, yes.
It's like when that scene in the book happened, I just got like the chills down my spine when I listened to it. I was like, holy shit, look at what's going on here. It's like people are getting turned into hamburger meat left and right. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah.
Um, and it kind of reminded me of like the Hobbit, where like this faction comes in and then the battle gets desperate and then they start losing and this other faction comes in and then they start to rally again and they start losing again and then this faction comes and helps out. I was like, oh, okay. That's kind of like, it kind of really reminds me of the way that Tolkien paces his battles.
Yeah. The epic scale of them.
Yeah, so I can't wait till we get to the whole Ashaman kill, and then I'm like remembering back, like the series as a whole, and thinking, yeah, the last 3 books they're very different, and I remember some characters. Now that I remember, like yeah, I guess that now that I think of it, that character isn't really something I think Jordan created because I know Sanderson created a couple characters. And the characters he created, I actually really love. And one of them was like the guy who can make gateways, but everything else like that he does sucks except for gateways. So he does like some really cool shit with just gateways. Like it reminded me of the game Portal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he's like, oh, I suck at everything else, but I can make some pretty awesome gateways. And then in one of the battles, he just makes a gateway in the middle of a volcano and just pours lava all over the battlefield. I was like, oh shit, this guy's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, man, I know there's like some crazy shit that's gonna happen in the later books, and I can't wait till I get there. And I was also remembering, oh yeah, there's like other bubbles of evil. Because there's a bubble of evil in this book that was pretty funny. Not funny. It was funny because I was like, oh yeah, this is a bubble of evil. And it was like things were coming to life and attacking Aes Sedai. And the thing that was funny is that like the Wonder Girls were like were already experienced with the bubbles and evil, so they had to explain it to the other Aes Sedai what they were, because they thought they were being attacked by the Forsaken. And she's like, "Oh no, these are bubbles of evil. Like we've dealt with these before." Because what happened at
What do you mean by the bubbles of evil?
okay, so the bubble of evil one occurred in book 3 or 4, I think. Remember when? Okay, so there were 3 incidences that were described. One was Perrin got attacked by his own axe.
Oh yeah,
The other one is Matt was playing a card game and the cards came to life.
right.
And the one for Rand, reflections of himself attacked him.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, those were the bubbles of evil, and they only
Okay.
affected the 3 Ta'veren. But in this book, the bubble of evil attacked the entire rebel Aes Sedai camp.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, it's just hard getting through this and all the other books I'm reading right now.
Yeah.
But because I've decided to take on, well, Malazan is a pretty hefty series.
Is that the one that's like even more complex than Wheel of Time?
I know that it's on par as far as world building. So far, I'm not getting that great a sense of the world, mainly because Robert Jordan is very descriptive when he describes the world itself and the cultures and the peoples and architecture and decor and all of that stuff. It's very easy to see the world of Wheel of Time. I can tell that the world in Malazan is very complex. Like there's a lot of different facets of the world and how the magic system works, but it's one of those books that doesn't explain everything up front. So I'm like, okay, like the characters talk as if if like the dialogue between the characters, there's not a lot of exposition. As far as I've been reading, there's almost no exposition about the world itself.
Oh wow.
So I'm a kind of a little bit lost as far as what's going on as in that makes the world unique and special, because they'll talk about their magic systems. They don't really get in depth about their magic systems. Like they talk about, oh, there's these warrens, and I'm like, what are these realms that they're talking about? And then there's you can tell there's like a lot of lore in the world, but maybe it's just because it's book 1 and they're just kind of not explaining a whole lot about it. But I'm hoping he gets more descriptive about the world. It seems like he's coming from something like Wheel of Time. I feel that there's a little bit of a lack of the world description. I think after this, I read through this, I'm going to have to check out, I think Daniel Green reviewed it, but I have to see what people's takes are on this first book. Hopefully I can find something spoiler free because I don't want to spoil the series.
Oh yeah, good idea. Do you know if the Legendarium guys have done anything on it?
They have not. They have not tackled this book series yet. I could probably find some podcasts that's talked about it, but I'm only reading this on the recommendation of Green saying, "Oh, the world is pretty vast and complex." I'm actually seeing that is the case. It's just not as well explained as Jordan does with his world.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's more confusing that way, you said?
I would say it could be a combination of me reading the book an hour before I fall asleep, and because that's when I read it before I go to bed. And I make a bad habit of trying to continue to read while I'm nodding off. So I'll finish a chapter and not know what I read, and then I have to actually reread it the next night to find out what actually happened.
Yeah, I do that too. Yeah.
So a lot of the times I do spend a lot of time rereading. Um, I don't know what it is about me reading before I go to bed, but I have this. I feel like I have to resist sleep until I finish a chapter, even though it's not really helping me anyway, because I'm not going to even know what I read.
Yeah, I'm the
Um,
same way. Yeah,
I was like, I just need to put this down because I know I just read a chapter, but I have no fucking idea what happened.
yeah.
Because I was just like nodding off, and then I end up reading like the same paragraph like 5 times in a row because I nodded off halfway into the paragraph. So yeah, that's kind of my battle with Malazan right now. I'm thinking it's going to be good. I just need to focus more on not trying to read it while I'm half asleep.
Hmm. Yeah, I always get more reading done and read more quickly when I read earlier in the day than I do um, when I read before I go to bed.
Yeah, but I gotta use that time though, so that's why I just try to do it. Sometimes, like, I didn't have that problem as much with King Killer. Like, King Killer was giving me the opposite problem, where it was keeping me awake too long. So it'd be like 3 in the morning. I was like, I want to read another chapter, but I should have been asleep like an hour and a half ago. But
Right.
I still could keep going because that's how kind of a page turner it is and how well written it is.
That's always
Um,
good.
yeah, I'm expecting Malazan to be good. It's super complex right now, and I don't have a good grasp of what's actually like the. I don't have a good grasp of what's going on in the book politically. I know there's a lot of political shenanigans going on. I just don't have a good grasp of it right now.
Okay.
But
Well,
I do
hopefully,
know a lot of the perspective is from like people in an army, and the army employs mages, and these mages have different talents and um, different motivations, and some of them backstab each other, and some of them have cheated death in various ways. So I just got to get into it a little more. I'm only like 100 pages into the book, and it's a 500-page book.
oh, okay. Yeah, maybe it gets a lot more easy to understand. Maybe they illuminate some of the stuff that you're confused about.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it will be. Just 100 pages in, it just seems like they're cramming a lot of characters and like complicated political intrigues at you. It feels like you're reading something, you know there's something going on, but he's not quite giving you enough information to know, to like grasp the implications of what's going on.
Okay.
That's what I feel like. I was like, I know this is supposed to be good. I know I don't understand. I feel that I will understand eventually.
Okay.
But that's that, man. Um, yeah. I guess. Did you rate the movie? I said I rated. I recommended it. What did you rate it as?
Yeah, I'd recommend it. I'd give it like, especially the way I watch it now, like a satire. Like I said, I'd probably give it like 4 stars out of 5. It's not
Yeah, and
like
also
it's not like an amazing movie that I watch over and over again, like Fight Club or The Matrix or Pulp Fiction or Lord of the Rings. But it's like I've definitely seen it like I think four times or so, and I'll probably watch it several more times.
I also recommend you check out RoboCop.
Oh yeah, for sure.
You'll understand Starship Troopers so much better from the director's point of view if you check out RoboCop. You'll be like, oh, this is like the same thing almost.
Yeah.
Like you'll see what I mean. There's like a lot of satirical elements in RoboCop. Even though RoboCop is based off of a comic book, so it's not something that Paul Verhoeven invented. It is he took source material and he made a movie out of it.
Okay.
So yeah, highly recommend that. I'd say you would love it. People love RoboCop. It's a great movie. The first is really good. I like the second. Some people don't like the second movie. The third movie is pretty bad.
Okay. There are 3 of them in total?
I think there's 4 because there was a new RoboCop movie that was like super serious.
Oh, okay.
No. Yeah. There was a new RoboCop. I don't remember. I watched it, but I have no freaking idea what it's about. It kind of reminds me of the Judge Dredd reboot, where Judge Dredd, the original, was like super satirical, and then the new Judge Dredd movie is like super serious.
Oh, interesting. I've only seen the newer one. I haven't seen the original. That's the
With
Sylvester Stallone, right?
Sylvester Stallone.
Oh, okay. I should watch that.
You'd probably like it. It's like a dumb 80s/90s action movie. It's like in the vein of Demolition Man.
Oh, okay. I love Demolition Man.
It's not that like campy. It is campy, but it's not that campy. But if you like those types of action movies, you would like Demolition Man. I'm sorry, you would like the Judge Dredd movie, the older one, and you would like RoboCop.
Cool.
Can't believe you haven't seen RoboCop. What's wrong with you,
Yeah,
man?
I know.
Go watch it. Like, whenever you get the chance, go watch RoboCop.
Cool. I will.
Like, every kid when I was young wanted to be RoboCop.
Yeah.
Maybe that. Okay, here's our next assignment. That is going to be our next movie chat. When we do another movie chat, we're going to talk about RoboCop.
Okay, sure. Good idea.
Yeah, and then we could do our comparisons with Starship Troopers.
Good idea.
That might even be our next stream because I'm not ready. You're not ready with Hate Inc. I'm definitely not ready with Lord of Chaos. So
I
I
haven't
say our
even
next.
started reading it yet either.
Yeah, so that's what we'll do. Our next stream is going to be RoboCop.
Okay, cool.
All right. So I guess we could do our outro stuff, right?
Yep.
So I'll go ahead
Sure.
since it's on yours. So yeah, just check us out. The dealio. We got a Facebook group where we argue all the time about Black Lives Matter and George
Yeah.
Floyd. If you want to see people arguing about the protests, check out our our Facebook group. It's not uncivil, so you can go there and you don't have to see people calling each other assholes and bastards. We keep it cool and collective there. But check out our discussions there. Check out the podcasts. It's fucking full of shitload of episodes you can listen to. Check out our past streams. Check out our Wheel of Time content. Check out our Patreon page. And check out our Twitter. All you have to do is do a Mixmill Arts Google search, and you can find all of that shit. All right, there you go, Andrew.
All right. Yeah, check it out. I won't do all of my outro stuff that I do on MMA since it's on here on Mindgasms anyway. But I'll say all the stuff that I like to say at the end. So thanks to everyone who watched this. Thanks for that person who commented on it. That's great. Usually people don't. Thanks to everyone who subscribes to the channel and clicks the like button on this video and shares it. And especially thanks to those of you who give me money on Patreon, which I greatly appreciate. And like I always say, I love you all. Keep being the tiny beam of light that shines through the almost impenetrable darkness in the universe. And most importantly, always remember this: the funk cures all. And also, groove is in the heart. And watch Starship Troopers if you haven't seen it. It's a great movie, especially if you watch it as a satire. And read the book too, but don't look at it as actually directly related to the movie, in my opinion. And yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. All right.
Watch RoboCop.
Yes, watch RoboCop. Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
If you want to, that's what I recommend. If you want to take part in the discussion for next time, watch RoboCop.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about it.
for sure. All right. Well, adios. Oh yeah, thanks, Night Shadow 427, who has been listening. They said they had fun listening. Awesome. All right. Well, adios until next time, everyone.
Bye bye.